Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Singh. Let's take a moment to appreciate and to get to know the skin a little bit better with the aid of the Visible Body Human Anatomy Atlas platform. Here in front of us, we can appreciate we have a 3D model of a skin. Skin accounts for about 10 to 15% of the total body weight. This in turn makes it the largest organ within the human body. And when we talk about the skin, it is more than just this outer covering, but rather it's quite a complex organ with many functions that are important in allowing us to maintain homeostasis. Of course, when you talk about the skin, you're talking about the cutaneous membrane, and it consists of two main components. The area that we're highlighting here now in blue, it is called the basement membrane. The basement membrane. The layers that are found above this basement membrane are referred to as the epidermis, and the layers that are found below this basement membranes are referred to as the dermis, up until about this point. Then below the dermis you have the hypodermis, which is sort of being alluded to beyond from the starting point where we're highlighting as blue. So let's reiterate. The basement membrane is separating out the epidermis from above and the dermis below. Now, let's take a moment to appreciate a little bit more detail in regards to these two layers. The epidermal layers are these basically made of these keratinized, stratified squamous epithelium that is resting on top of this basement membrane that we've alluded to here. The epidermal layers can be made up of either 5 or 4 layers, depending upon what type of a skin you're discussing. Because when we talk about skin, you can have either thick skin or thin skin. Thick skin will have 5 layers in the epidermis, while thin skin will only have 4 layers. So the 3D model in front of us that we have available to us actually a skin of a thin layer, so we'll be able to appreciate at least the 4 layers, and the 5th layer that you would see in the thick skin will allude to as we move further ahead. So let's take a moment to appreciate the epidermal layers you would find within the thin skin, starting from superficial and then working your way deep. The topmost layer here is referred to as the striatum corneum. Striatum corneum. The second layer deeper below is referred to as the striatum granulosum. Striatum granulosum. Moving our way into the deeper third layer, here it's called the striatum spineosum. Striatum spineosum. And then finally we find our way to the last layer within the thin skin, and that would be striatum basale. Striatum basale. Now, of course, we said that if you were within the thick skin, there will be 5 layers, and then that 5th layer that you would find, particularly in the thick layer, it would be a sandwich between this outer first and second layer, between the striatum corneum and the granulosum. It will be sitting in between these 2 layers. It will be a very nice, small, thin layer here. We call that striatum lucidum. Striatum lucidum. So these are the epidermal layers that are sitting on top of this basement membrane that we had alluded to before. Now, is there an easy way to remember these epidermal layers? Well, there is a mnemonic out there. The mnemonic helps us to memorize the epidermal layers as you would find them in a thick skin, and the mnemonic goes as follows. Come, let's get skin burned. Come, let's get skin burned. Of course, I highly recommend you not get skin burned. If you're going to be out for prolonged periods of times, go ahead and apply some sunscreen to protect yourself and your skin. So the layers again that are alluded to with the help of this mnemonic there are as follows. So come is alluding to the most superficial layer, that's corneum. Let's is referring to the lucidum layer. Get is referring to this granulosum layer. Skin is referring to the spineosum layer. Burned is then referring to the basal layer. Now we need to appreciate that within these layers, at the point at which we're looking at them, let's appreciate a couple of interesting sort of cells that we may find within the layers that we're looking at them in very general. First and foremost, we're going to find our way into this layer that we had referred to as the striatum spineosum. Within the striatum spineosum, you're going to find these particular cells here. These cells are called Langerhans cells, or sometimes referred to as dendritic cells. These are found, of course, within the stridum spineosum, and these are cells of the immune system, and they are phagocytic cells. And their main job is to eat away anything that should not be in there. They're going to be phagocytizing bacteria and pathogens, then in turn protecting the skin and the deeper tissue from any kind of onslaught that may be brought on by those pathogens. Now, if we can work our way into the stridum basal, we'll appreciate that there's another important cell that we'll find there, and we're highlighting it now. These are called melanocytes. The melanocytes are these cells that are found, of course, within the stridum basal, and they're going to be allowing us to produce melanin. Melanin, in turn, gives us the skin color that we have, and further, it's going to be helping us to protecting the keratinocytes, which are within this area, helping us to protect the keratinocytes' DNA from any kind of UV radiation damage that may occur to those cells. So the melanocytes that we've highlighted here are going to be allowing us to have our particular skin color, and also are going to be protecting the keratinocytes' DNA from any kind of UV radiation damage. Now let's stay sort of within that area and move a little bit further along, sort of at the edge of this basal. We're going to find these cells called Merkel cells, M-E-R-K-E-L, Merkel cells. These are these oval-shaped cells that are found also scattered sort of throughout the stridum basal. And what they do is they're sort of acting as these sensory receptors that are associated with these neurons that you can sort of see below here. And what they do is these Merkel cells, they allow us to detect light, touch, and also allow us to discriminate shape and textures. And you find them in large numbers, particularly in the areas of fingertips, lips, and at the base of the hairs. So these are Merkel cells. Now, as we had said before, that all the layers above this base of the membrane were the epidermal layers, and then everything below this then is regarded as the dermis, up until this point, as we are going to allude to in a second, up until this point. So the dermis is here, this area here. The dermis is basically composed of this loose connective tissue and this dense irregular connective tissue. And the dermis is further subdivided into two areas. There's this top layer of the dermis, we call that the papillary layer, and then the layer that's sort of further below, we call that the reticular layer. So the papillary dermis, is here, and then this is the reticular dermis. So together they're going to be referred to, and they are part of that, the dermal layer. Now, embedded sort of within both of these, the epidermis and the dermis, we have some structures. We're going to refer to the structures and call them accessory structures. These are structures that are embedded and found within both of these sort of layers that we were just discussing. First of them that we'll take a look at will be this structure here that we're going to highlight now, and this is called the sweat gland. The sweat glands are there and embedded within both of those structures, and these are the first of the accessory structures that we can find within the skin. Further on, we're going to appreciate that there's another structure here. Here is the subcaseous gland. Subcaseous gland, which is going to be producing this sebum, which is basically this oily substance. This sebum allows us to have a bit of waterproofing characteristics and add that characteristics to our skin. So it allows us to have a little bit of that action because of the sebum that's being produced by these subcaseous glands. And also it deters the growth of bad bacteria. And the other accessory structures that we have within this area beyond this subcaseous glands and the sweat glands are these hairs, of course. Here are also embedded within these two regions that we've been discussing. And of course, nails are also regarded as accessory structures where we are not able to appreciate on this cut section of this 3D model. Now, beyond, we also have another structure that's very closely related to the hair, and that's this erector pili muscle. This is the muscle that's sort of attached to the base of the hair that are going to allow it to sort of stand up straight, particularly which you'll notice when somebody gets a little bit cold. It's just a small band, a smooth muscle that's associated with the base of the hair follicle. Now, beyond these structures that are embedded in them, we're going to find that we also have these various receptors. Some of them, one of them, which we already discussed here. But here, there's another uh, other things that we can look at that allow us that also allow us to sense the environment. First of them that we're going to discuss is this here that I'm highlighting now. These are free nerve endings. Free nerve endings allow us to pick up pain sensation and then deliver them to these sensory nerves that are going down further into the skin, deeper into the skin to allow them to be processed. So the free nerve endings allow us to pick up pain sensation. Beyond that, we also have these structures here. These are called Meissner's corpuscles. Meissner's corpuscles are involved in and allowing us to appreciate and detect light, touch, pressure, as well as vibrations. So the light, touch, pressure, and vibrations are going to be picked up by these Meissner's corpuscles. And we have another corpuscles that are found a little bit deeper below, sort of at the edge of the dermis, and these are called Passanant corpuscles. Passanant corpuscles are down below here. They're mainly involved in allowing us to appreciate vibration and pressure sensations within the skin. So you could already start to sort of already appreciate. You thought the iPhone or some of these other phones were pretty cool because all the receptors they had. Well, our skin does a pretty good job too. They have lots of interesting receptors that allow us to appreciate our external environment and then send that information off for processing to the nervous system. Now moving further below, we said that this area here was regarded as the dermis, and then anything below this then will be considered the hypodermis. Hypodermis is found deeper to the dermis. It's usually not considered to be part of the skin. It's going to be basically anchoring the skin to the deeper structures, perhaps the muscle or the bone. And it's basically a bit of this loose connective tissue, which we're highlighting now, as well as this bit of adipose tissue, which we're highlighting here. And it has the abundance of blood supply just sort of superficial to it, or very towards the edge of the sitting at the edge of the dermis and the hypodermis. You have the blood supply. So we can also appreciate that most of the skin will be receiving the blood supply from the deeper parts of the skin, and then the more superficial parts will be limited in as far as how thick it can be, because it needs to be close enough to this blood supply to be able to receive the nutrients and the oxygens to carry out its function. So we can also, while we're here talking about the skin, let's also appreciate in general, what does the skin do for us? The skin, first of all, it is allowing us to have protection. It allows us to have protection from mechanical trauma, from pathogens, and from the environment in general. Secondly, the skin allows us to have the ability to sense. It allows us to perceive changes that may be occurring both on the inside and as well as the outside of the body. And these are going to be critical in allowing us to maintain homeostasis. Beyond that, the skin, or the integumentary system, which is a system that is alluding to the skin, is also going to allow us to have thermoregulation capabilities. Basically meaning that we have the ability to maintain this stable internal temperature, mostly through this negative feedback loop. Additionally, the skin also allows us to eliminate waste products, and we're going to do that with the help of sweat glands. And also the sweat glands will also allow us to engage in the thermoregulation that we were just alluding to. So the sweat glands also allow us a mechanism by which we can eliminate some waste products as well as toxins from the body. And another thing that we can readily associate with the skin is that skin plays a very crucial and critical role in allowing us to synthesize vitamin D. So here's just a bit of an overview and a very general introduction to the skin and all the structure. Please feel free to go and navigate to Human Anatomy and Physiology, second edition, written by Ammerman, to appreciate a little bit more about in regards to the skin. Thank you for your time.